All right, let's dive right in and talk about the science of optimum weight. And right off the bat, I want you to know this is about way more than just the number you see on a bathroom scale. It's a much more complex and honestly, a much more interesting idea that's absolutely critical for understanding fitness and especially peak performance in sports. So to get your brain working, let me throw this question at you. How is it possible that a 120-kilo rugby player can be considered fitter, way fitter in fact, than a 70-kilo office worker? I mean, by some charts, that rugby player would be labeled overweight. But that just doesn't tell the whole story, does it? This is the exact puzzle we're going to solve today. So, here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with the super important energy balance equation. Then we'll nail down what optimum weight really is, get clear on some key definitions, see how this all applies in the real world of sports, and then, we'll wrap up by tackling an actual exam question to put your knowledge to the test. Okay, first up is the absolute foundation for understanding weight. It's called the energy balance equation. Seriously, everything else we're going to talk about is built right on top of this one simple but really powerful concept. So what is it? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a bank account, but for energy. The calories you get from food and drink, those are your deposits, or your energy in. And all the calories you burn just by living, breathing, and exercising, those are your withdrawals, or energy out. It's all about managing that balance. And just like a bank account, it can go one of two ways. If you're consistently putting in more calories than you're spending, you're in what's called a positive energy balance. And that leads to weight gain. But on the flip side, if you're spending or burning more calories than you're taking in, you're in a negative energy balance. And that's what leads to weight loss. Pretty logical when you think about it, right? And just to put some numbers to this, on average, men need about 2,500 calories a day and women need around 2,000. Now, I gotta stress, these are just averages. Your needs can vary wildly depending on your age, your lifestyle, and of course, how active you are. But it gives us a decent ballpark to start with. Okay, so we've got the basic math down, calories in versus calories out, but that's only half the story. Now let's look at the really interesting stuff. What actually makes up an individual's ideal weight? We're talking about the unique building blocks of your own body. And when we're talking about sports, this definition is everything. Optimum weight is not about looking a certain way. It is purely about finding the most favorable weight for an athlete to produce their absolute best performance. It is all about function, not fashion. So, what determines this perfect performance weight? Well, there are four big players. First, height. Pretty obvious, right? Taller people just have a bigger frame, so they'll weigh more. Second is bone structure. Some people just naturally have denser, heavier bones. Third is muscle girth, which is basically how big your muscles are. And finally, gender plays a part, since men generally tend to be taller with larger bones and more muscle mass. All right, let's switch gears and nail down some key terms. We hear these words, overweight, overfat, obese, thrown around all the time, but the differences between them are super important, so let's get them straight. First up is overweight. This is a very broad term. It simply means having more body weight than is considered normal for your height. That's it. It's just a general classification. Now this next one, overfat, is much more specific. And this is a really key distinction. It's not about your total weight on the scale. It's about your body composition. It means having too high a percentage of your body made up of fat. You can be overweight without being overfat, and that's a crucial idea. And finally, we have the term obese. This describes a state of being extremely overweight. We're talking about being roughly 20% or more above the normal weight range. This is a medical classification, and it's linked to some significant health risks. So how is this stuff usually measured? Well, one of the most common tools you'll see is the Body Mass Index, or BMI chart. It's a simple formula using your height and weight to put you in a category. But, and this is a huge but, it has a major flaw. And here's the flaw in a nutshell. The BMI calculation is, well, a bit clueless. It literally cannot tell the difference between a pound of fat and a pound of muscle. And because muscle is so much denser than fat, you end up with this bizarre situation where people with tons of muscle mass get incorrectly flagged as overweight or even obese. And this brings us full circle, right back to our rugby player. A professional weightlifter or a rugby player is a powerhouse of muscle. On a BMI scale, they might light up the obese category, but in reality, they are elite athletes who are at their absolute optimum weight for peak performance. So let's tie all these ideas together now and really look at how an athlete's weight directly affects what they can do on the field, on the track, or in the gym. This is where the theory meets reality. And this is where you really see the huge differences. On one side, you've got power sports. Think weightlifting, rugby, shot put, where a higher optimum weight, thanks to muscle, is a massive advantage. But then you look at the other end of the spectrum at endurance sports, like marathon running or gymnastics, where a lower body weight is what helps you succeed. So the bottom line is this. It's not about being heavy or light. It's about what that weight is. Excess fat, specifically, is going to slow you down, reduce your agility, and put a ton of extra strain on your joints. But a higher weight that comes from muscle, that is the engine for power. And for an endurance athlete, carrying less weight simply means you need less energy to move your body, which is a game changer over a long race. All right, theory time is over. You've soaked up all the concepts. Now it's time to put it all into practice. Let's walk through an exam-style question together and make sure all this information is locked in. Okay, take a second. Get in the zone. Imagine you're sitting in an exam. You turn the page and this question is staring right back at you. How are you going to approach it? Here's the question. It's for 2 marks. In some sports, being overweight may be required for optimal performance. Use a sport of your choice to explain why it could be beneficial to be overweight. Your brain should immediately be thinking about everything we've just discussed about muscle, power, and the flaws of the term overweight. And here's how you nail a perfect answer. For that first mark, all you have to do is name a relevant sport. Rugby is a brilliant example. Boom, 1 mark down. For the second mark, you just have to explain why that weight is a good thing. So you'd say something like, a rugby player's extra weight, which is mostly muscle, gives them the power needed to dominate in a scrum or make a massive tackle. It's as simple as that. Full marks. So, to wrap everything up today, I want to leave you with a question to think about. Picture your favorite athlete. Could be a footballer, a swimmer, a sprinter, anyone. Based on everything we've covered, what factors do you think combine to create their specific, unique optimum weight? Think about their height, their gender, the insane demands of their sport. It's a fantastic way to see these concepts come to life. Thanks for tuning in.